Hello, I'm Michelle White with another installment of Liberty Road. And with me today is our special guest, Mike Sorelli. He's a retired Navy SEAL and Chief Talent Officer for Overwatch Mission Critical. Mike, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do and why that and how that is relevant to what's going on in Iran?
Yes, thank you. One within the retired military, national security has always been a passion and interest of mine, having lived it for 20 years and fought during the global war on terror. Some of that against Iranian special forces in Iraq, but then on the data center side, which is a key topic that was discussed during the summit between the U.S. and China. That is the new style of warfare: compute. Who can generate the most power for compute, both economically and for defense. So I'm in the heart of that industry, absolutely love what we do, and it is the fifth industrial revolution that will change humanity, arguably already is changing humanity, but the way in which we live, the way in which we work, the way in which we defend ourselves.
So, Mike, as you know, Trump has just returned from his summit with Xi Jinping. Knowing what you know from that background and what you do for work, how do you think that's going to change what's going on in Iran? What message did it send to the Iranian regime? And do you think it will move the needle in the negotiations?
Yes, I do. So probably one of the most unprecedented or historic summits of our lifetime. I mean, as you saw, Trump brought the weight of the American economy with him and the CEOs that he had alongside. So I think there's two outcomes to this summit, and we will find out more over the coming days and weeks as negotiations continue, both on the economic side and the defense side. Let me touch on the defense side because I think those will be the short-term impacts we see the soonest. One, China is not going to further align themselves with a fanatical, theocratical regime that screams death to the world. What China ultimately is concerned about is not the health of Iran. They will throw them under the bus if it is in their benefit. What they are worried about is energy. The entire world is interested and concerned about energy. So, China wants a free and open Strait of Hormuz. They want to bring ultimately the pain point, the price point of oil below what is painful for them. So that was probably the primary focus. I think the guarantee that we are hearing right now, based off the limited information that we have, is that China agreed not to supply Iran with any more weapons. So this further isolates Iran from the rest of the world. Russia has been limited in their support for Iran. China will be further limited in their support for Iran. And we've painted them into an even tighter box. The economic strangulation going on through economic fury right now, the blockade. They have little to no leverage points whatsoever. And with Germany and England, from what we're being told, sending assistance for the security of the Strait of Hormuz, that paints an even worse position for Iran. But their currency is in free fall. The inflation is climbing by the day, even with regards to the food. And this blockade, ultimately, Karg Island, which you've probably heard that name quite a bit, is almost, I'd like to say, it's becoming the scoreboard from which we're judging our success. They can't offload their oil onto tankers, which means when you can't offload, your storage fills up. We're seeing that they are 85% storage capacity right now. That will diminish in the coming days. And that sends your production into free fall because you got to shut down oil production, which has irreversible impacts on active, healthy wells. And that can be permanent damage. So, they will erode economically from within. And when you erode, you can't pay your soldiers. The people start to feel the pain as well, eventually to a point where they say enough. And I do believe that there is military planning and operations going on right now on how to target specifically Iran's oppression mechanism known as the Bajij. And so we may see, if military strikes start back up, the military specifically target Bajij leaders as well as foot soldiers or any infrastructure while trying to arm the people of Iran to ultimately take back their country.
Do you think we'll see that soon?
So Trump is, the one thing about Trump is he's never going to give you a timeline, as
Right.
any president should never give our adversaries a timeline. What he's saying is we're going to do it until the job is done. And we all know that that is a complicated situation given a midterm election year. What I plead for the American people, having served in the majority of my adult life in the global war on terror, is a little bit of pain now for massive benefits, not only for our older lives, but for the next generation, is absolutely worth it to rid the world of what has been a cancer for 47 years. I have the same feeling when I go to a pump. It's an allergic reaction at the price. The prices on food. But I am happy to do it, knowing that it is going to be a better Middle East with the prospects of a more peaceful and prosperous Middle East, which benefits the global economy and ultimately the American people. So stay the course, as they said in England in World War II, stay calm and carry on. We've got to do this. We've got to see it to the end, and we are close.
You're right, Mike. And the polls show the most Americans do not want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. So just hearing that message might remind them of what the alternative is. My guest today is Mike Sarraille, retired Navy SEAL and Chief Talent Officer for Overwatch Mission Critical. Mike, my next question is about an op-ed you wrote about a month ago, co-wrote, called The Legacy of Eagle Claw. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. If there's one military event that I'm obsessed with, it's this one. So it was the failed rescue attempt in 1980, April of 1980, of the 52 Americans taken hostage in Iran during the Islamic uprising, when this regime actually came to into being. So Delta Force, alongside other Americans from other services, attempted a rescue. They never even got close to the objective due to weather and a lot of, let's say, technical or mechanical issues. They had to call the mission off. But they were in Iran. They landed in Iran. And when they landed, they were refueling assets. Two aircraft collided and 8 Americans were killed. It has become a watershed moment, not only in military history and for the U.S. military, but especially the U.S. Special Operations community. Massive investigations were launched into the root cause analysis of why this failed. And ultimately, the United States Special Operations Command was created, which we know today, as well as something called the Joint Special Operations Command. And so what was a failure ended up being one of the most influential operations in the U.S. military. It was impactful for the capability and the capacity that we see today. What made this anniversary so unique is that we saw two downed Air Force pilots behind enemy lines, and we saw JSOC, the organization that Delta Force, which had the lead on Operation Eagle Claw. We saw them go in behind enemy lines to bring those those airmen home, those pilots, and it was just a beautifully orchestrated and executed operation in the same area 46 years earlier that failed. And that shows how far we've come. And, to the American people, it's the same thing with the pain. Don't ever discount for our adversaries. Don't ever discount the resolve, the determination of American will. When even one soldier is behind enemy lines, the entire U.S. military stops and they focus on the rescue of that individual at all costs. And talk about a covenant, and then advertising that covenant to all the military soldiers that make up the Department of War. They saw in near real time, and it actually take place, that no matter what, if I'm stranded, my brothers and sisters in arms are coming. And that's why I use the word covenant. It is a covenant. We bring our men and women home, either dead or alive, but we will expense every resource we have to do it.
You wrote a lot about that covenant and that brotherhood. And while we as civilians may not understand it, I think we as Americans surely celebrated, all of us, with the spectacular move and the rescue of our two soldiers behind enemy lines. It was just amazing. I've never seen anything like it in my lifetime. So lastly, I want to talk about your new installment for your series on Fox Nation, and that's coming out right after, or right before, it's Monday, right before Memorial Day weekend. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, so this is the second season of The Unsung of Arlington. We tell the stories of possibly lesser known veterans laid to rest at Arlington, of just phenomenal stories of the men and women that had an impact on the military, but maybe didn't receive the public praise or the entertainment or TV accolades that some veterans receive. And that's dear to my heart. Having served 20 years and continuing to serve the military and the veterans getting out by finding them jobs now in the data center industry. I have, or I could think of no higher calling um, for the rest of my life. I love the men and the women that stood to my left and to the right, and I loved them a lot more than I hated the enemy. And what drove me was what wasn't in front of me, but what was behind me. And so we need to tell these stories. It is Memorial Day is a headstone. It's not a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And we owe it as Americans for the 1 million soldiers who have given their tomorrows for our today. We owe it to learn some of their names and to learn some of their stories. I think it's a very uncomfortable fact for Americans to think that men and women go forward to protect us at severe risk to their safety in their lives. And that's an uncomfortable feeling to think about that. Death is not fun to think about. And even the ones I've lost, it brings up or evokes a lot of emotions that I still struggle with. But we're going to do it anyways. And we're going to tell these stories. And I can't say enough and I'm very biased here, Fox News and Fox Nation. I've never seen an organization more dedicated to telling those stories than any other news network. They've dedicated their lives to uplifting the military, our veteran community, and our fallen. And the fact that I fell into even what is a small relationship with Fox to do this, I just hope that it has another 20 seasons behind it so that we can tell a lot more stories.
So when can people watch?
So it's on Fox Nation on May 18th. We have 5 episodes on this one. Just when you hear these stories of these individuals that were curated and hand selected, we tell their stories, and I got to tell you, Michelle, I question whether I did enough during my time in service and in my life today. Just phenomenal stories that you'd almost want your children to hear. I think you do want them to hear.
Right.
About what real discipline and sacrifice and commitment in that sense of purpose that people have, and when they have that surrounded by great men and women, they tend to make the seemingly impossible possible. And those are the stories we tell that inspire people to live in a different way, in a better way, and to ultimately ask yourself, what more can I do for my community? What more can I do for my teams, my families, and what more can I do for my country?
Right. That's wonderful. Mike Cirilli, thank you so much. Former retired Navy SEAL, former Marine, and Chief Talent Officer for Overwatch Mission Critical. Thank you so much. We'd love to have you back on our show. This has been an installment of Liberty Nation News. You can find more at libertynation.com. Thanks for joining us.